Imagine making an enemy out of somebody who can literally shrink down to the size of a thumbtack and they can stalk you whenever they want. That's basically Shikamaru's new reality if Kawaki starts putting all the pieces together. And the worst part, it might not be Shikamaru who ends up in Kawaki's crosshairs, but it might be Ino as well, thanks to one very determined aide of the Feudal Lord Kobu, who is sniffing around for answers. Kobu, the Feudal Lord's right-hand man, he's digging into Boruto's repeated escapes from Konoha, including one escape directly from jail. And when Kawaki sits down with him, inevitably, there's going to be a very real chance his paranoia about the sensory unit and the secret communications, it could spiral, dragging Ino and Shikamaru into danger that they can't afford, especially with Ino no longer working with Shikamaru. Join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video where your OBC, your original Boruto chief, breaks down why Kawaki's interrogation is about to turn into a powdered keg, how paneling in the manga has already foreshadowed this happening, and why Shikamaru's job as Hokage has never been riskier. Trust me, this is one of those setups where the danger isn't just coming from enemies from outside the walls, but also is coming from a guy who can shrink himself down to 1 inch in size. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out and subscribe to my Anime Explained channel where I discuss other anime and manga besides Naruto, and check out and subscribe to my Everything One Piece Explained channel where I discuss One Piece and explain videos, as well as blind react to every single One Piece chapter from chapter 1 all the way up to the most recent chapter. Both will be linked in the description box for your convenience. So let's just get right into it. The stage is basically set with Kobu's investigation. Let's look at the context. The Feudal Lord, who was a close friend of Naruto, who wants justice for Naruto's death, he's still mourning it. He's ordered a full-scale investigation. He has zero faith in Shikamaru. His aide Kobu is spearheading it. The mission is to figure out how Boruto's been slipping in and out of Konoha undetected, not once, not twice, but 3 times in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Technically 5 times when you count the conversation with Kawaki and Boruto having been in Konoha right outside of Himawari's house. Boruto definitely has a target on his back, and Kobu, he's on the hunt. He's talking to every single person who's had contact with Boruto, no exceptions, and that's where Kawaki comes in, because he's the one person in the village with obsessive suspicions about Boruto's movements. This leads me to Kawaki's suspicion about these sensory units. So we gotta roll this back to chapter 4 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Boruto manages to pull off an escape, and Kawaki immediately smells that something is off. He's seeing Boruto talk. He doesn't know at the time that Boruto was talking to Kashin Koji's toad. That might be something that comes up during the conversation. Either way, it's going to lead Kobu to looking at the sensory unit. And at the time when Shikamaru was talking to Kawaki, Kawaki said that he flat out suspected that Boruto had help from the sensory unit. That paranoia, it wasn't out of nowhere. Kawaki's very observant. He had a good reason to think so. And if Kawaki is connecting the dots, even though he knows about the toad, he also would not rule out a sensory unit connection. But Shikamaru, at that point in the story, he still fully was under the influence of omnipotence in terms of the memory swap. He told Kawaki, there's no way. I'm the Hokage. If anyone was working with Boruto, I would know. Those words might bite Shikamaru in the ass later on. If Boruto had any help, he's telling him, hey, I would have helped you because I would have known Boruto had help. That was the official story. It was neat, it was clean, it was believable because Shikamaru himself at the time believed it to be true. However, Shikamaru right now, he knows the truth. He knows Boruto's not the villain that the world believes him to be. He knows it's actually Kawaki, which means that earlier denial, it doesn't necessarily hold weight anymore. If he gets cross-examined, his facial features might betray him. And Kawaki has all the fuel he needs now to revisit those suspicions if Kobu begins to look in Shikamaru's direction. And when Kobu begins to press Kawaki during interrogation, since Kawaki has interacted with Boruto a lot, you better believe this sensory unit suspicion is going to surface. The second it does, Ino, who leads the sensory division, she's going to be placed under a microscope as well. And that brings me to why Ino might be in danger. So that's the real danger in this whole situation. Ino might not hold up under scrutiny. Think about it. Kobu, if he directly questions her about Boruto and whether or not the Yamanaka clan's mind transmission jutsu was used, and if the sensor unit was compromised, she already does not want to help Boruto. She's made that clear. She also has to think about her clan legacy and not damaging her child. She's gonna have some concern. Her face might betray her at one moment. Then again, Kobu might miss it because Kobu's not a shinobi. However, Kawaki's in the room, or if someone like Sai's in the room, they're going to notice that. Can she lie and risk exposure, or can she tell the truth and end up putting herself in Kawaki's sights? All things are possible. And let's not forget, there's a wild card here, Kashin Koji. I strongly believe he's going to use Inojin as a middleman to secretly contact Ino and tell Ino, you better not snitch. If you do, your son's going to go down with you. And here's the thing, that entire conversation is still going to lead people to start suspecting Shikamaru as well, because he has a closeness to Ino. They might even theorize that Shikamaru might have been the one that was sanctioning a off-the-record secret communication using the Yamanaka clan's hidden jutsu, and that would be in direct violation of Konoha law. That's how a single line of questioning could spiral from Kawaki's paranoia into a full-blown danger for both Ino and Shikamaru, though there is some wiggle room for them to navigate. That's the beauty of how shonen are typically written. A lot of you guys ask, like, why are a lot of the what if scenarios dark? It's because when you remove plot armor and you change one small thing, you start to realize how much had to go right for our beloved heroes to get a happy ending. Like, for instance, this situation is basically the same thing like if I did a what if Kisame found Haku instead of Zabuza and Kisame was the one in the Land of Waves arc. There's no way in hell that Team 7 is walking out the Land of Waves alive. It's a similar thing here. There's a very tight rope. They're more likely than not going to be able to walk it and not get suspicion, but I say pull the trigger on it. We need more conflict in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Now, this is where I do want to kind of point your attention to something very near and dear to my heart, which is the paneling in the manga is being used as foreshadowing. This is one of the most underrated pieces of storytelling, manga paneling itself. And once you understand the Ikimoto panels, very similar to how Akira Toriyama did Dragon Ball, the paneling makes a lot of sense. In one of the chapters, we get this eerie moment where Kawaki, Delta, and Shikamaru, in the order of Delta, Kawaki, and Shikamaru going from right to left, they are paneled side by side. Kawaki and Shikamaru are not in the same room, but the way that his eyes are drawn, the way that there is suspension use kanjis in that panel, and how Kawaki's eyes are staring over into Shikamaru's panel, that wasn't by mistake. That's not an accident. That is a classic foreshadowing technique that talented mangaka will use. Mangaka often use visual tricks like this one to tip off readers of where the narrative is heading, and the really skilled ones can do it without using words. And this is one of those moments where Ikimoto self-admitted that he studies Akira Toriyama's paneling very closely. You see the fruits of that labor there. Whereas someone like Kishimoto did use elements of Toriyama, Kishimoto also would use the storyboards from Kill Bill as part of how he paneled things. It's a silent language in manga. The flow of panels, it guides your eyes. It creates connections that the characters themselves have not made. And you have the benefit of everything on the same page where you can take the scope off of the panel you're looking at and see the whole page in its entirety. You don't get that same effect in anime. That's why you hear me say repeatedly, if you're a longtime viewer, there are certain things that anime cannot accomplish that a manga can. That is why I prefer manga more so over anime. In anime, scenes they play out one by one with cuts. If a anime has really good schedule and they might split the screen and have two scenes on the screen at the same time. But with manga, you see everything at once, side by side. There are multiple ways to read a manga chapter. especially if you're reading it from a different perspective. It's like puzzle pieces that are waiting to lock together. Sometimes the best way to see what the mangaka is doing is to look at the entire page in its totality, not just one panel at a time as you're reading it. That's where the Dragon Ball aesthetic comes into play, because Ikimoto typically uses that 3 to 8 panels per page like Toriyama did. It's a puzzle piece. So when you see Kawaki's suspicious glare, essentially his eyes crossing the page looking at Shikamaru, that message is clear. There is a clash that is building between them that is inevitable, or at the very least, Kawaki's going to learn that Shikamaru has been working behind his back. And that is dangerous when you consider Kawaki is a consequentialist at heart. That's where it gets dicey for Shikamaru. Kawaki being a consequentialist by nature, meaning he does not care about laws, morals, or even the rules themselves if he thinks that the end result justifies the means. If he decides Boruto's freedom equals betrayal, then anyone who is even possibly remotely linked to Boruto, Shikamaru, Ino, the sensory unit, they are automatically a suspect. And Kawaki does not hesitate to cross lines. He is not a shinobi bound by the tradition of the Will of Fire. He's pretending to be Naruto's son, but he does not embody Naruto's Will of Fire. Kawaki is a survivor. That has been his entire story. If he thinks watching Shikamaru secretly, shrinking down to 1 inch in size to spy on him, or even taking out people he thinks are traitors, will preserve his warped vision of protecting Naruto, he will do it without any type of hesitation. Again, the man looked at Naruto, said, "I'm gonna kill your son." And when Naruto said, "Before you kill Boruto, you have to kill me, can you really do it?" Kawaki sealed Naruto and Hinata and basically said, "Y'all gonna get the hell out my way." Kawaki, for lack of better words and probably for lack of tact on my part, he gave Naruto and Hinata that long overdue second honeymoon. That's what Shikamaru is basically put in a very dangerous spot for. He's supposed to be the 8th Hokage, the unifier, the man holding the village down together, but now he's got a ticking time bomb in Kawaki watching his every move. And if Shikamaru makes one mistake, one misstep, Kawaki could decide, hey, this guy's no longer trustworthy. And this raises the stakes when you look at Kobu's investigation. This is the big picture. Kobu's investigation isn't just a political move by the Feudal Lord, it's the perfect pressure point that will expose the fault lines in Konoha itself. Kawaki's paranoia will bubble to the surface. Ino's position as the head of the sensory unit, that will be threatened, and Shikamaru, the Hokage himself, could end up under the suspicion by both Kawaki and the Feudal Lord's aide. And if Kawaki decides that Shikamaru is compromised, then we're heading towards a confrontation. Not between Konoha and the enemy outside the walls in Jura, but instead a confrontation inside the walls themselves. The kind of confrontation that could lead to destabilization depending on what Kawaki does to Shikamaru. He could very well seal him away and said that Boruto did it. Boruto's been teleporting in and out the village, so it is possible. Nobody's going to doubt the words of Naruto's child, because again, omnipotence makes them think that Kawaki's Naruto's kid. So Kawaki's likely interview on screen or off screen with Kobu, it has the potential to shed light on a situation hidden in the dark. It has a chance to light a match of a powder keg. His suspicions about the sensory unit, it's going to put Ino in danger. His potential surveillance of Konohamaru or someone like Shikamaru could escalate the risk. And the paneling in the manga has already hinted at a clash that is coming. Combine that with Kawaki's consequentialist mindset and Shikamaru's fragile position as Hokage, you've got a recipe for a deadly internal conflict. Because in this world, the real threats, they are always these Shinju hiding in the darkness. Sometimes the person standing next to you is the one watching your every move, and it goes back to a key Naruto principle. A ninja must learn to see through deception. It's making us as the readers start asking, is Kawaki going to push Shikamaru and Ino into a corner? Or does Shikamaru have the brains to stay 3 steps ahead of him? Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here on the left to check out more videos from Naruto Explained, or click here on the right to check out videos from my other 2 anime channels where I talk about non-Naruto content.